I've got a confession to make.
I need to get this off my chest. As a business owner, we all make mistakes.
I've got to confess.
I want to go into the next week about how to niche then. Like, how do you actually approach this topic? Because, it's all good to cover, why it's important, which I think we can both agree. It's also good to cover the layering, but I want to know the Kim Barrett approach. Like, how do you pick your niche? Is there anything you look for particularly or approach you take?
Well, I think that for a lot of business owners as well, like you kind of have to have a significant event to then make you actually reassess it. Because again, you've probably heard, like if you're listening to the podcast, you've probably heard 100 times that you need to have a niche. And you go, yeah, that sounds pretty good, but whatever. So normally until there's like a friction point or a pain point where you go, actually, I need to reevaluate is generally when it will come about. And then I think that's generally as well, like when it's fresh is the best time to go into actually how you would choose your niche, because you know all the pain you've just gone through. You know all the things that you like you said at the end, like that you don't want or you don't want to do, which makes it very easy to do. And like one big point is always looking at what is the thing that you are the best in the world at, your zone of genius, and how do you make sure that that is what you focus on? Because if you just did that, you would be like rich and wealthy beyond measure. Like if you could just do that zone of genius is when you start to add in all these other things. And like I said, I've continued to do it, even though I've refined, I still have done until like even recently, until like last week, like things that have been like not really in that zone. And I've noticed the pain. I've noticed the, like not physical pain, but I've noticed like the effect it has. And I know that if I can stick to my zone, like if I know that like, the crossover of like, what is it that I do better? If anyone came in and wanted to throw down and they're like, cool, Kim, you choose exactly what you want to have happen. If this is like a battle royale, like, cool, we're all going to do this one thing, winner takes all. And then you already know beforehand, you're like, yes, I'm done. It's like when you're a little kid at school and it's like, everyone would love the running races and like, cool. Like Kim, your choice of the sport. And everyone's like, oh, hope he says like long jump or running. I'm like, no, shot put. And everyone's like, oh, damn, Kim's going to win the shot put because I know that I'm going to dominate that, right? It's like where you throw that out there. That's your zone of genius that you need to know. It's like where you go, I've got this, right?
Yeah, it's about making it easy to win. I love what you're articulating there is like, if you were going to the Olympics, for instance, and the Olympics being business world for whatever reason in this examples, is like play the sports you can win. Like don't try and be great at every sport. Like just dominate one. Oh, really, really interesting thing. You can tell I'm a bit frustrated with some people that have asked me questions on niching in the past. But anyway, I want to go into some things I really think about when I'm actually picking a niche. But I want to quickly put a point in first, is that I think that niching is something that constantly needs to be refined. It's not something you're done with. It's like a garden you tend to. It's not a concrete slab you pour and then it's, set concrete. So it's like it's healthy to refine it. I also think niches move with all things. So in the example I gave before is there was no one that was a PPC specialist when I did it. We were like one of the first. So we could do it because it was a new thing, but I don't think many businesses would survive just having that as their niche if they tried it to then, because in time, like there's people that have just gone to specialize in Google or just gone to specialize in Facebook. So niches keep getting deeper based on many, many things and how big markets get. But this is what I want to go through from here. And I think this is a really important part if you're looking at refining your niche. So for me, I even wrote some notes here. So if you see me looking to the side, you'll know why. Is like I like to start with a series of questions. And then I work through and like based on this is where I start to look for my niche. And then I will go and validate that niche. So the first one I look for is who do I enjoy working with? Because if I enjoy working with someone, I know my energy is going to be high. I'm going to be happier. The team's going to be happier. The team's going to be more relaxed. Who you enjoy working with is important. I really think it is.
And can I chime in on that one as well? Like for people listening to that, because sometimes they go, how do I get that? I was like, if literally, this is an example I give to people. I was like, if you literally were about to go away, that old desert island, you're on a desert island and who would you bring with you? It's like, cool. If they came with you, how long would you last? Like if it's not longer than about 30 minutes, probably think again. Like if you could last weeks and you're like, yeah, leave us here. Don't worry. Don't even worry about coming back. Like you're on the right track if that's the case.
I even go a step further. It's like if your phone rings and it's them, it's like, do you look forward to the call? Do you actually look forward to the conversation? It's a really good filter, I think, because you kind of know if you want to speak to someone or if you don't. Subconsciously, I think, comes through. But exactly, Desert Island is another good one to go about from here. The second one is like, who are your best customers? So this is different. This isn't who you just enjoy, but this is like who you've got the best results for. Who have you really moved the needle for and shown exceptional results? I think is really, really important to evaluate is there. As much like picking the sport is like we're picking shot put. Who can we crush this for? We want to win shot put. And just for the record, I was a shot putter myself, Kim. I did all right in shot put back there. Yeah, represent. The next one is who gets the most value from what you do. And I'll give you an example. Let's pretend I'm a specialist at saving business owners 10%. That's what I'm a specialist in. Now, if a business is making 100 grand a year and I save them 10%, it's a little bit, it's not bad. But if a business is doing $1 million a year and I save them 10%, there's a lot more value to them in what I do. And I think this is a really important one is that if you're working for people that value what you do at a higher level, is like, it's a healthy thing to have in your niche because you become across much more appreciated, your services are valued. You're also able to kind of charge more as well, which is where that layer comes in to your pricing. Or if you're trying to sell constantly to people that don't get much value from what you do, it's not much fun at all. That ties into my next one. Who can afford to pay you? And this is a really important one. I think Seth Godin said this one quite a few times, is like, stop making things for broke people. One sure to be painful, and it's very, very true. Is there's some hungry markets out there. There really is. And I'll give you an example. Do you remember Napster?
Yes.
Yeah. So Napster, really interesting. I've been doing some reading on Napster, and it's like, investors put $100 million into this company, right? 100 mil. And do you know what they found out? People who want to steal music don't want to pay for shit. Who would have thought? So they made a huge mistake in not being able to monetize things. But it's like, from the other side of things, there's certainly a hungry market for free stuff, but they're not great customers. It's like you want a market that's hungry to pay for great value and work with you, which I think is really, really important. Next part, what can you deliver well? So, in my example earlier is like, I couldn't deliver all these things well. Where's that, and I'll tie this into the next one, is like your zone of genius. Where is that area where you can deliver strongly with the team? So this one probably more relates to scaling a business, but it's like if you deliver well something only you can do, then you're setting yourself up for pain down the road when you try and hire people. So it's like, if you design things and go, well, what can my team and business deliver well? And you work around that area of the business, is like, that's a much healthier place to niche from. You don't want to niche your business around you, only pain and frustration to come from that. I'm gonna throw one more, and there's plenty of these questions, and I hope people are writing these down because they're very good questions, but I'm heavily biased. I wrote them. Another one to look at is, where do you have a strategic advantage? So I'll give you a few examples of this one because I think like you've got to look at it. Let's pretend your dad is, let's say Kim's father runs the Chamber of Commerce for mining businesses in Perth and has all these contacts in mining. So if you've got a strategic advantage where not many people would have those contacts, sometimes it's a really healthy idea to build your niche around where you have strategic contacts, where you have unique resources or availability, because it's so hard to compete against businesses who have those type of things. So, maybe you're a good friend of yours has a certain type of business you can leverage, and you have some crossover in niche, and that's a really healthy thing. I mean, you and me even do this stuff, Kim, as we play in a lot of the same circles. It's really healthy for us to build a niche around each other so that we can refer each other work or do joint ventures together. Like, that just makes sense in a lot of ways, but I feel like people really forget it. And then the next one I'm going to throw in here is what you referenced earlier, is zone of genius. And can I use you as the example, or do I need to keep this one quiet under wraps?
Please, sir.
Okay, I'll use Kim as the example from here. Is like, Kim is phenomenally good at two things. I have seen him do both really well. Number one is Facebook ads or marketing in general. And then number two is presenting and teaching. Now, I'll go as far to say Kim is top 1% at Facebook ads. And I'll go as far to say he's definitely, I'll give you top 3%. I've seen some very good speakers. So top 3% at speaking. Now, in each field individually, there are people that can knock him off. So there are people that might be a little bit better at Facebook ads, or there are people that might be a little bit better at speaking. But I'll put it out there as I don't think there's a person on the planet that can beat you at both. It's like you are actually the number one person from there. So for Kim to understand his zone of genius and what's probably coming down the road, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, combining those two areas and building a niche around where he is very, very talented makes a lot of sense to me. It really does.
Yeah, 100%. And as you said, like, that's the thing I was referencing. It's like it's taken me a while to get to know that, and like it's had many different changes in our business to try and get that right. But now that we're like, it's become more and more apparent, as well as some other things. Like I said, it's like some painful realizations as well that have been coming through. Then it's like, okay, cool. Now we know how we're going to even more, like you said, it's a constant evolution. It's like a little plant that we're watering. Like we've got to make a few changes, put on a couple of bits of manure, and away we go. And we've got to keep it, well fed. So now that we know there's like a little bit of a change for us, that we're going to, how we position things and how we do things, which is going to make us more unique in what we do, but also allow us to give people way more service in the scope of what we're going to do there. So like Charley said, like you guys will see more in the weeks to follow, but by having that realization, it allows us to go from, and I always liken it to the ice cream, right? I'm a big ice cream fan. I'm sure I've seen Charley put away a couple tubs in his time after a bike ride. Fan. Right, but it's like the thing that is that if anyone, like if you want to get vanilla ice cream, I can go to the local shop, I can go to 7-Eleven, I can go to Woolies, Coles, wherever, not a problem. If I want like pistachio ice cream, like I got to go to a specialist, and people will travel across the town. They'll knock over other people, they'll kick them out of the way to get their special one flavor of ice cream that they want. So when you become that like pistachio flavor for all intents and purposes, right, you are going to be like a destination business where people go, cool, you want this, you have to go to them. Nowhere else in Melbourne sells pistachio. You've got to go to Charley's House of Nuts, right, to get the special ice cream, versus you can go anywhere to get the vanilla.
Absolutely. And it's like, I love the saying you come up with the other week, no one travels for vanilla.
Yeah.
It's like, that's how I feel about niching. It's like, no one travels for a broad market. It just doesn't happen. So I want to throw one more question in here quickly, Kim, because it's like, if someone goes to this effort, and how do you validate your niche? Like, at what point do you say this is the niche, or I've validated this niche, and how do you go about it?
It's interesting. Well, I think like number one, you kind of know. I think all of us as business owners, like you say, like if you say it out loud and you don't feel excited or you feel worried, it's like, no, you haven't done it right. So you've got to use a little bit of intuition. But I think as well, like we said earlier, generally, if you make a decision on that and you go forward, I think that it'll normally validate itself pretty quickly, either in a test or in like an affirmation. So what do I mean by that? It's like, if you go, cool, I just now, and I'm going to give you an example of Chris, who's in my team, the funnel division. So he decided he's going to focus on doing webinar funnels for people. So again, cheeky plug, if you want webinar funnels, speak to Chris from the funnel division. But when he did that, right, there's a person that registered and said on one of his pages, he was doing a funnel management service and things like that. She's like, cool, I really want to work with you. I'm a beginner business. I'm probably not your ideal market, but I love what you do. I really want to work with you. And he got on the phone and he said, cool. Like before he said anything, he's like, what do you want? She's like, well, I want 3 webinar funnels. And he said, well, if you would have said anything else, I would have had to say no to you. But he's like, my new decision, which I've just come to the realization of when doing my yearly planning, is I'm only going to work with people doing webinar funnels. So for him, that's like a confirming, that's like a absolutely done. Whereas I know before where I've made a decision, said, cool, I'm just going to work with this type of client. I'm not going to do e-commerce. Someone messaged me like, hey, Kim, so I have this business and I sell really cool hats. And I've got a budget, like I'm happy to pay you like $5,000 a month. And like I've got like $20,000 a month ad spend. Can we make something happen? That's the test where you go, oh crap. Like here is
you will be tested.
It's like I could very easily just take these things. And as soon as you say it, like again, not to be like woo-woo or anything like that, but I'll put it down that you will either get reaffirmed or you will get tested in how much you actually want it. And the decision you make will actually affirm it for you as well. you know? And
Definitely.
it's funny because I was listening to this thing on the radio and they said it's pretty true. They said if it comes down to it, let's just say you go, cool, this is what I'm doing currently, and I have my new niche and I don't really know which one I'm going to go for. They said flip a coin, because what will happen is that halfway through the flip, you'll really want one or the other to come up, right? It's not that you go either way. You're not like you're going to win $10 if it's heads. It's like, you're like, oh shit, I hope heads doesn't come up, because then I'm going to have to stick to my old crappy niche. Or you go, oh, I really want tails to come up. And before it's even landed, it doesn't even matter what the outcome is. You know, in that moment, which one you actually wanted. And then that's what you go with.
Do you know what's fascinating is I did not expect that answer from the ads guy. I expected you to flat out say start running ads. But I agree with a lot of what you've said. Is like, as I said, not going too woo-woo, but it's funny how if you do this right, my belief is that you will feel it because things will get easier in your life. It's like your business will start to run more smoothly.
Yeah. And I would just say, like, obviously, like, I'm a big proponent of testing, but I think once you have that, like, because you can like, if you're testing two different niches, it's very easy to sway one or the other in the amount of effort you put into an ad campaign, or like the actual amount of like reference points you put into something. And like I've just done this recently for a client that I'm working with I'm like consulting on their project, and they wanted to test two different offerings. And so I did two different ads up, and I was like, before I even did it, I was like, I know which one's going to win. I still put the same amount of effort. I was like, I'm going to test it so they're happy, but I know which one's going to get the best response. And just feeling it. And I was like, cool, this one is. And the ads showed that. So I think like once you have that and you go, cool, this is definitely who I'm going to go after, then I would test it out to the marketplace. Because if you still have two ideas, you're really going to wait one anyway. And it's going to be a waste of time, energy, and effort, because you're going to spend all the like effort on this other one that you don't really put as much into this one that you did like. Whereas you go, cool, now I've just got to like, then there's a whole Facebook niching. Once you have that really tight, then you've got to like work out how you basically convey that into a target market, which is another whole episode that we could record on. And then how you put that forward to test, like then how you best articulate things, offer things, all that sort of stuff. So I would put that, and that's why I think it's like, if you, number one, find what's your zone of genius, makes you happy and works here, you can figure out the right way to get in front of the right people well enough after some, like, it will still take some tweaking and testing. But I think if you go with like the gut instinct to start with, then the rest will kind of somewhat take care of itself.
There's a lot of truth in what you've said right there. And I like that because I can relate to it. Like that's been my exact same experience. That's what's come through. But I will also like to throw in is that even when I do have that, I still like to quantify things. So it's like if I'm feeling good about a niche and I've gone through this and I'm happy, is I'm really, really about getting an offer to the market as soon as possible so that opportunities can start or conversations with this market can happen to kind of reaffirm the work I've gone through from here. And that'll kind of and the thing I'll throw in on top of this is like, I'm prepared to be wrong. It's like, if I get to this point and it's not exactly right, I'm happy to keep refining it because I know it's worth to get right. But getting to market and seeing some good things come from this or bad, so you've got some quantitative data, really is the icing on the cake for me.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree.
Well, this has been a very interesting conversation and one I'm very glad we've had. So, Kim, we're going to wrap it up from this one on Confessions of a Business Owner. But thank you so much for joining me and talking about niching. Now, I'm going to throw a quick one out there that if you've enjoyed this conversation, this is the type of conversation we have in the members community, the association. So if you do want to come and check out the association, there'll be a link somewhere around this video from here. You can come in and apply and see if you can go deeper on this stuff. So thank you so much for joining me on Confessions of a Business Owner. This has been Kim and Charley talking about niching.